Zola Levitt Presents with Dr. Jeffrey Seif and Sandra Levitt. As dark clouds ominously loom over the horizon, radical Muslims charge the atmosphere with brazen disregard. As the sun sets over Christian Europe, sleeping Christians need to wake up. Non-Christians need to get up, and moderate Muslims need to rise up. Bad Moon Rising.
Hearty shalom to all of you. Jeffrey Seif here with my friend Sandra Levitt.
Shalom. Welcome to the final program in the series, Bad Moon Rising.
And we're ending with a powerful testimony here from Walid Shoebat. Walid is a former terrorist, an expert on Islam and radical Islam, and a personal friend of yours and Zola's, correct?
He was the first terrorist that we interviewed. And when Ken called and said, we'd like you to interview this terrorist, Zola and I both just went, no, it's a terrorist. But he is a new creation. He is a gentle man, loves the Lord, and I think you'll like it.
Sandra and I get thousands and thousands of letters every month. One of the things that I've noticed is that we frequently are asked, hey, why don't you guys have Walid Shoebat back? And the reason for that is that Walid gives an insider look at the nature and structure of terrorism, having come from that himself. Walid, it's a pleasure being with you today.
Thank you for having me.
And you have this new book, Why We Want to Kill You.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't sound very friendly.
Well, my first book, Why I Left Jihad, and I do a lot of seminars, and I find out that people still ask the same questions, even after giving an extensive seminar on terrorism. I had to be more blunt and issue another book, Why We Want to Kill You, basically the root of terrorism and getting into the mindset of the jihadist Muslim, so the Western mind can go inside and kind of probe in the reasons and how they see the world and how they view the world from their perspective. This way they get to understand it.
Now, Nazi Germany was occupied by a Western mind, but what I learned from reading your book was the correlation. That is, apparently Hitler drew from Islamic practices, particularly the star. We looked at that previously. Individuals know that in Europe, Jews were forced to wear a star, but that doesn't originate from Europe, does it?
No, it came from Spain. Remember, the Muslims, the Moors occupied Spain for hundreds of years, in which was instituted the Umar Declaration or the Umar Covenant. Umar ibn al-Khattab was the third Khalifa in Islam. And he issued this decree, basically the Islamic legislation towards Jews and what is called the dhimmi being Jews and Christians. For Jews, they had to put yellow patches on their right shoulder. Jews were not allowed to enter into Muslim bathhouses. What you've seen in Nazi Germany, Jews were not allowed to enter into German restaurants. Jews were not allowed to be judges in Muslim courts. Jews were not allowed to be judges in German courts. Jews must pay double the taxation in Nazi Germany. In the Muslim legislation, Jews must pay jizya taxation. Legislation for protection money, in which it was put in lead of iron, and iron leads and things like that, in which the price and the amount of their payment had to be paid. Most Westerners don't know what the Jews had to go through, and Jews also couldn't, ride horses, must ride donkeys, must wear special clothing, must put special markings in their house to identify them as Jews. When you look at the ghettos in Nazi Germany and you see how the Jews were living, it's very, very little difference than what you've seen, what the Jews had to endure in North Africa, let's say, in what areas called the Malahs, in which Jews were responsible to put salt on decapitated heads after executions. They had the meager jobs in which they lived in isolation and desolation in areas where nobody is supposed to be going there.
Well, our series, Bad Moon Rising, looks at Hitler's Germany. And then it looks at the rise of Islam, and we're interested in similarities. And so you say there's a definite connection.
Absolute definite connection.
That's scary at one level.
Yes, you even see, if you go to Lebanon, you see Nasrallah, if he makes his speeches in Lebanon, what do the followers do? The same salute as you've seen in Nazi Germany. Very similar thing. And what's happening in Europe is that the growth of Islam is becoming a threat to the regular populations. One of the most common names in Sweden would be Muhammad, one of the most common names now. They have more children per capita than any other culture in the world. So you see the expansion of Islam in France. Once Islam reaches a sensitive quantity of people, a crucial amount of Muslims, then they're mandated by Islamic Sharia to take over those countries. Let's not forget, in the Middle East, North Africa, that was not a Muslim country. Egypt was not a Muslim country. Those were Christian countries. Lebanon was a Christian country until recently. Now it's turning Islamist. It's become an Islamist state within a state. You look at Turkey. Turkey was not a Muslim country. How did these countries become Muslim? How were they converted to Islam? Either by the sword or either by Islamic expansionism from within. They grow, multiply, and they have more numbers in the Christian populations, and then sooner or later they'll take over.
I would imagine some would say, well, you're just an extremist, Walid. You're just sowing fear. But if I understand you correctly, if you look at the history of Islam and the theology of Islam, there's reason to be concerned. And so those that want to play it down, that's just more about avoiding the unpleasant realities. Thus, you're just speaking the facts and not just inflaming our imaginations with fear and disconsternation.
Well, most Westerners would think that you're talking about a religion here. What most Westerners don't understand is that Islam is not merely a religion. Islam is a constitution. This is why you see Muslims, when they demonstrate in the streets in America or in the West or in Europe, they carry the banner, they say, Al-Qur'anu Dusturuna, which means the Qur'an is our constitution. So when a senator kind of swears in the Qur'an, he's really swearing on a constitution. So it is a constitution, a code of law, a code of system, not for civil code only. It has a lot of civil code, which many Muslim countries have, but it is a civil code to be established throughout the entire globe.
Let me make a statement and ask you a question, Walid. The statement is that our program now goes all over America and all over the world, and it's translated into Arabic, in fact. Many of us hear about Islamic extremism and Islam, but we don't hear from someone from that world. You come from that world, you were a terrorist. Take a minute and a half and tell the world what the world needs to know about Islam.
Well, when Westerners look at Islam, they look around them in the West. There's many Muslims in the West who adhere to a peaceful ideology that they believe only in the West. What they need to understand is Islam came from the East, from the Middle East. If they go to the Middle East, if you look at the universities of Islam, Al-Azhar University per se, the largest university in the Middle East par excellence that graduates scholars and Muslim clergy. They support suicide bombing in the Palestinian areas. They support mistreatment of women, basically being a second-class citizen. They talk about the 72 virgins in heaven for the martyrs. When many Muslims in the West will say, we don't approve of this, they will try to correct the Western Muslims, if you will, regarding the reality of Islam in the East. If people want to doubt what I'm talking about, maybe, as a matter of fact, I had a radio interview yesterday when a Muslim, American Muslim, a black Muslim, began to object to my statements. I said, would you go to Cairo? Would you go to Syria? Would you go to Jordan? Would you go to any country in the Middle East, stand on a bus stop, reach to your back pocket and put a skull cap on your head, maybe acting as you were Jewish? What do you think would happen to you? He would not live 5 seconds. So that's the problem. We don't understand what is happening in the East. We simply are listening to the apologists here in the West.
And we're going to listen to you some more. Back in a moment with Walid Shoebat.
For insightful perspectives of Israel and Bible prophecy, ask for our free monthly newsletter, The Levitt Letter. When you call, be sure to also ask for our free catalog with the latest videos, books, and music. Our correspondence course, the Institute of Jewish Christian Studies, includes reading packets, teaching CDs, and mail-in tests. You may want to join us on an upcoming tour of Israel and Petra, or cruise the Mediterranean visiting Greece and Ephesus. Please contact us for more information.
Back with former terrorist Walid Shoebat, who has written some books, the lauded Why I Left Jihad being one, and recently, Why We Want to Kill You. Scary subjects. Why? Let me ask you some what and why questions. Number one, what does Islam mean? And number two, why the hatred of the Jews?
Those are two loaded questions. Islam in the West, a lot of the politicians are saying Islam is a peaceful religion. The definition of Islam is very clear. Islam is really a cult-like process in which they indoctrinate the masses in unison, as you've seen in Nazi Germany, when you see Nasrallah giving speeches, in order to convert them to become remorseless killers. And that's what you see. And seekers of salvation by death, a very important component in Islam, because salvation is assured by the death of the martyr. And the goal is to establish an Islamic hegemony in which Muslims and Islam are dominant and all Muslims are subservient. This is why Jews wear yellow patches. This is why Jews become subservient to Muslims, Christians as well, and the people of the book become all subservient to Islam. In fact, it's the haves giving the have-nots and controlling the have-nots, becoming controllers of the haves. And this is what you've seen in Spain. This is what you've seen the expansions of Islam in history. Why the Jews? That's a very, very crucial question. We have to really understand that Islam came from a satanic source. If Christians don't understand that, I don't think they'll get the true concept of Islam or what it is. Because if you look at the Bible, there is an interesting verse in Isaiah chapter 63, verse 9. Verse 8 and 9, it talks about God's relationship with the Jews or with Israel. And it says, for he said, surely they are my people, those are Israel, children who will not lie. So he became their savior. In all their affliction, he was afflicted. Let's just think about this one sentence for one moment. In all their affliction, in all Israel's suffering, God himself suffered, literally. If you look at him, at the Messiah dying on the cross, naked. They also died naked in Auschwitz. They also were led to the slaughter. He was silent in front of their accusers. He was silent in front of their accusers. He revived on the third day. Israel, diaspora, destruction of the temple, 2,000 years on the third day. They revived also as a nation, the valley of the dry bone of Ezekiel. All the things, they went out to Egypt. He also went out to Egypt, came out from Egypt, suffered in the same fashion. The parallels are so many that we don't even have hours to even discuss all the parallels in Scripture regarding God and Israel. This is why Isaiah 53 is viewed as maybe it could be Israel, when in fact it's about the Messiah. But there is some aspects of it is really pertains to Israel, because Christ views himself as he is Israel. I was hungry, you didn't feed me. Exactly was in Matthew 25. I was naked, you didn't clothe me. I was in prison, you didn't visit me. And if you look at Joel 3, gathering of the nations for the judgment. Matthew 24 and 25, gathering the nations for judgment. In Joel 3, it's very clear. It's regarding the division of the land of Israel and the mistreatment of the Jewish people. For I will gather all nations into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and then I will enter into judgment with them. There on the account of my people, my heritage Israel, spelled out by word, Israel. And in Matthew 25, it's his brethren. And if we go through the Bible and look at the brethren, Micah 5, who are these brethren? It's clearly all about Israel.
And it's interesting hearing a former Palestinian terrorist tell that. Now, we don't have hours to talk, as you said, but we have minutes. So tell us, if you will, believing that it's better to light candles than curse the darkness, what can we do? I know you go into it in your book quite well, Why We Want to Kill You.
Yes.
What ought we to do in the West?
There's many things that we need to do. We need to have a serious war on Islamic terrorism. First, the definition itself. We call it war on terror. We're fighting the mechanism, or are we fighting an entity? When the West fought Nazi Germany, they did not fight Germans. They fought Nazism is what they fought. So we need to define the enemy. What is the definition of this enemy that we are fighting? When the president says Islamofascist, everybody ridicules him. We are fighting Islamic fundamentalism. That's what we're fighting. There's very little terrorism coming out of any place else but the Islamic terrorists. So we need to well define it, well define the enemy, and quit falling for the pitfalls, the false peace resolutions, Oslo peace. Now they have the Robert Leakin in the Nixon department in Washington, D.C. wants to bring in peaceful Muslim brotherhood. There is no such thing. Islamic Brotherhood started in 1928, right when Islam was wounded in 1924. The dismantlement of the Ottoman Caliphate, of Islamic fundamentalism, really existed by the West, bruising it in 1924. In 1928, the movement of Islam never ceased to exist, to stop, trying to rear its ugly head again. It is succeeding. We have Russia, communism fall. Now something came up in the East, which is Islamic fundamentalism. It is succeeding. So we need to understand that this is nothing new. This is something very, very old. It's an ancient war. It's not as a result of the war in Iraq. Stop focusing on the war in Iraq as a result. Stop focusing that the Jews went back to Israel and that's why they're blowing Jews up. They were killing Jews way long time ago from the Umar Declaration, way from the Prophet Muhammad when he killed the Jews of Banu Qurayda, Banu Nadir, Banu Qaynuqa. We need to get the history in perspective and begin to realize that we are with an old war that is nothing new. We need to get out of the Saudi oil, get out of supporting the mechanism of terrorism by billions of dollars, being funded to build madrasas. We need to go and focus at the universities. I spoke at 50 universities across this country.
That's great.
150 universities in America have Muslim student associations, all of which support the terror apparatus, all of which support the theology of Islam, of Islamic extremism and fundamentalism.
That's why we need to get the story straight. We want to get the story straight. We want to get the story out. Thank you, Walid. Get the book, Why We Want to Kill You. I'm pleased to recommend Why I Left Jihad by Walid Shoebat. Be back in a moment.
The wonder. The beauty, the soul of the Holy Land. For more information on our next tour to Israel, call 1-800-WONDERS.
It's Israel, and I know I say it every week. It's the way we see it. Come home. Come see your home. It is your spiritual home. You need to go to Israel. You just saw us interviewing Walid Shoebat. It is always a pleasure to see him. He puts everything into perspective. Sometimes I'm out speaking and I think that I'm the only one saying there is evil in the world, and Walid really hones in on it. We're going to go now to an interview with Cecilia Rexin, and Zola interviewed her many, many years ago, and she is a delightful, delightful woman who was in the Holocaust as a German nurse, and she saw things that are unbelievable. I want you to watch this.
Now, as a nurse, I understood that you were assigned to work with the famous and horrible Dr. Mengele, who did all these horrible experiments on the prisoners.
Yeah. The Jewish people call him Angel of Death.
The Angel of Death.
Yeah. And you know, but in his laboratory, he was no more angel. He was more than a devil. Yeah.
What did he do, Cecilia?
That's so dirty, you know. Sag mal, dass die Augenfarbe changen wollte.
Trying to change the eye colors to make them look Gentile.
How did he try to change their eye color? What did he do?
Yeah, that's what
With
he
what?
was.
Wie hat er es gemacht?
Mit Spritzen im
Injected dye
Augapfel.
into
He
their
stuck a
eyeball.
needle in their eye
Yeah.
and injected their eyeballs with dye
Yeah.
to try to change the colors.
Yes.
No, never they change. Yeah, they change.
Blind.
Like this.
They went blind.
Yeah, no, I died.
They died.
Yeah, von poison.
Yeah.
Abschneiden.
He worked
Arme.
together with other doctors to cut off limbs, so see how people, so gangrene set in, to see sometime without anesthetic, to see how much pain somebody could stand. And that was for the purpose of, supposedly for the German soldiers, in case.
He cut off people's arms
Limbs
and legs
And legs, yes.
to see how much pain they could
How much
stand.
pain they
how
could
long
stand.
it would take for the gangrene to set in.
Gangrene set in, and a lot of, most of the time, in fact, without anesthetic.
No anesthetic.
Yes, and then she told me too, with the gypsy girls primarily, they were 12 years old on, sterilized.
Yeah,
Not have
without
children.
anesthetic.
thousands.
She said she never forget the screams, just working with him.
When you were here at the kibbutz, when we were visiting, you saw Jewish children playing,
Yeah,
and you were surprised because all the Jewish children you ever knew died.
yeah, almost. Jewish and Gypsy go to Auschwitz. They put in a gas chamber. Das war auch so, denk. Sag mal, ich kam nicht aus dem Smell raus mit dem verbrannten Fleisch, sag das mal.
She still thinks about the burnt flesh, especially about the children. Always the flesh is burning, and she always thinks about the children. And she told me she thought about that, again, when she saw the Israeli children playing and working the kibbutz. And she said, never again.
Cecilia hasn't forgotten much about the concentration camps. Memories were rekindled as we walked through Yad Vashem, the memorial to the 6 million Jews who perished in the Holocaust. In this bronze relief, she saw once again the faces of children she had loved and then lost to poison gas. These trees were planted in memory of those who, like Cecilia, were not Jews but had in some way sheltered Jews from certain death.
How did you feel when you walked up to the wall?
Cry. I think about the kids here, and not only in Jerusalem, in the whole land. When I saw kids dying in the camp and grown up, you dirty Jews, you don't know how to handle a shovel, you are lazy. I come here after 550 years. I saw the farmers here in the kibbutz. I see around, so beautiful, so beautiful, so beautiful.
So when you walked up to the wall, you prayed to God.
Auf den Zettel geschrieben hast, von den Kindern.
That God looks for the kids in Jerusalem and around in the Holy Land, and never again. Yeah.
That was Cecilia Rexin, a German, not a Nazi, who witnessed the atrocities in the Holocaust. We can never forget any evil. I don't care what name you call it. Evil is still evil, whether it's Nazism, Islam, whatever, Jeff. We can't forget it.
Well, now that you've reminded us, let's not forget that there were good German people that were swept up in something much bigger than themselves. And that's one of my principal concerns in looking at Islam today. It's not to say that every Muslim is a bad human being. Some are fine and have a lot of character. My point is they become irrelevant as the more aggressive, the more bellicose, the more militant gain momentum. The lesser sorts get swept up, and they're about as relevant as this nice German woman was during the Holocaust itself.
And she was appalled at what she saw. Why don't they speak up? Why don't we speak up?
Well, we need to, and that's one of the reasons why Zola Levitt Presents now is presenting in Arabic. I want you to see a clip from our previous series where we're teaching the Bible and it's translated into the Arabic language in the interest of reaching some of our Islamic friends and neighbors.
القضاء على الشمشون بالطرق المعروفة والتقليدية، لذلك لجأوا لطرق دنيئة للتخلص منه.
If it doesn't work conventionally, let's look for plan B.
هذا يذكرني بما يحدث هنا في إسرائيل، فقد حاولوا محاربة إسرائيل بالطرق التقليدية والمعروفة فلم تفلح، لذا قرروا اللجوء إلى الإرهاب واستهداف المدنيين العزل والأبرياء.
Let's go after civilians and let's hide behind women and children and let's get the world all riled up.
Jeff, in Arabic, it's a call to arms. It's a witnessing tool that we use to have people come to know the Messiah in their language. I don't think there's anything better we can do for anyone.
Let's reach the world.
Absolutely.
It says in Isaiah chapter 60, verses 1 through 3, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon you. And then in verse 2, choshech, darkness.
Darkness.
And in verse 3, the goyim, the Gentiles, will come to your light. We need to be a light sitting on a hill, don't we? And broadcast the good news in every language, every tongue, best we can.
Right. It doesn't matter what the language is. The message is still the same. There is only one way, and that is Yeshua HaMashiach, the Jewish Messiah.
That's right. And we want to get that story out. And we want to get the story straight. For my money, too much weakness, too much political correctness, too much compliance, too little truth-telling. I want to thank you. You could have, and many have, I would imagine, just channel surfed right past us. People watch television to get their minds off their problems. They don't want to hear problems in the world that we live in, especially at the magnitude that we discuss. But the truth is the truth, and those that love the truth love the one who said that he was the way and the truth and the life. And inasmuch as you love him, I would ask, please, if you would love us and get behind us as we want to talk about him and shine a light in an increasingly darkened world. If you're interested in Zola Levitt Ministries, if you would, go to www.levitt.com. You can learn more about us, and you can get news from the eyes of the Jews. We look at the Bible on one hand, the newspaper at the other, and we put it together, and we try and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Will you please help us? Pick up a pen, pick up a checkbook, and get behind Zola Levitt Ministries so we can get behind the facts and tell it like it is. That's our desire, isn't it, Sandra?
It is our only desire. Jeff, I don't know many other people that are doing what we're doing. We dare to tell the truth. We take the hits for it, but we are going to continue to tell the truth about Messiah. God bless you. God bless Israel. God bless America. And as you go, Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Our offer on this program, the DVD collection of Bad Moon Rising. In this series of 8 half-hour programs, Dr. Jeffrey Seif chronicles the horrendous events of the Holocaust and likens today's rise of radical Islam to that of Nazi aspirations for world superiority. Witness the remarkable stand of a modern-day German church as it draws a line in the sand and declares, "Never again." Bad Moon Rising. And you may also call toll-free for our colorful monthly newsletter, The Levitt Letter. This free publication includes Bible lessons, insightful news commentary, Hebrew lessons, and more. Call 1-800-WONDERS. That's 1-800-966-3377. Or write to Zola, Box 12268, Dallas, Texas 75225. You can also see our Levitt letters, TV programs, and national airing schedule at www.levitt.com. Please remember, Zola Levitt Ministries depends on tax-deductible donations from viewers like you. This has been a paid program brought to you by Zola Levitt Ministries.